This message is to all our would-be accomplices and white allies.
Wait for it.
This message is to all the white people who have BLM in their bio.
Wait for it.
If you really want to prove to black people that you love us and you care about us and you are down for the cause,
Wait for it.
do not go see that movie opening weekend.
That Caucasian drop, that is really disheartening. That's shocking. The box office debut for Black Panther Wakanda Forever is noticeably lower than the first Black Panther.
You want to go see Black Panther?
Wait for it. Here it comes. Almost there.
No. No, I don't think I will.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and we are now into the second week of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the best movie ever created in history. And I think it's time to start looking at how the box office looks. And there's been some interesting commentary around whether or not the movie was a flop. I don't think it was a flop. I think that that's probably not a fair assessment of it. However, I do think it's entirely likely at this point that the movie will either lose money or make only a little bit of money. What we're really going to find out is in the second weekend how much the drop off is, how much legs the movie got. The audience really loved it. Audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is a 95%, even though the critics actually only gave it an 84%. But there's some very interesting demographics and money conversations to be had about exactly where the MCU is. And we're going to get into that after a super quick word from this video sponsor. Huge shout out to this video's sponsor, Established Titles. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords and ladies in English. They allow people to buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land so they can call themselves a lord or a lady officially. In return, they commit to plant a tree with every order and protect the beautiful, pristine woodlands of Scotland. Established Titles makes an absolutely amazing gift, and a person could officially get their name changed on documents. Their title pack gives you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate and an official certificate with a crest. Established Titles is currently having a really big sale just for you, my subscribers. You can get an additional 10% off any purchase you make with the discount code The Quartering. So click the link below, go to establishedtitles.com/The Quartering and use promo code The Quartering to save an extra 10% today. Now let's start with after a week in the cinema. By the way, when I see a movie's 2 hours and 41 minutes long these days, I'm just immediately turned off. I don't really want my movies to be 3 hour long epics. Very few movies have the writing and skill to be 3 hours long, and Marvel movies are not 3 hour movies. You want to talk about Lord of the Rings? Okay, but even you could look at Return of the King, and I thought even that movie dragged on. So I mean, you've got to have a tight 3 hours if you want to score. Even Endgame dragged on at times. So I mean, I don't think Marvel has really earned this 3 hour runtime stuff that they do, but that's just my opinion. The critics gave it an 84, which is vastly dropped from the original Black Panther movie, but the fans seem to love it. I nothing Black Panther. I mean, I like Black Panther as a character, but I knew Black Panther wasn't going to be in this movie. I knew that they were going to replace him with a woman, and I wasn't interested in that. There's every major MCU film in this recent phase really. Its main kind of introduction was a female star. You had Lady Thor in Thor: Love and Thunder. And by the way, I love Natalie Portman, but her performance in that movie sucked. She was garbage in that movie, okay? I don't know if she just took it for the paycheck and didn't care. She didn't bother going to the gym. They had CGI muscles. It was ridiculous. And by the way, her performance was in general bad, and the writing was bad. And it was probably the second worst Thor movie I've ever seen. Might have been actually the worst because you don't really have much of an excuse at this point. You know the formula. But the reviews are fine. But what I want to talk about is how the film in a lot of ways has underperformed, and I believe that financially it's going to lose money or make only a little, which is going to be a huge L for Disney. Let's talk about some of the woke stuff first of all, and some of the other reasons why I think Black Panther 2 is underperforming, and also why the bar is so high. Let's start there. The budget. The budget is absurd. $250 million budget. $250 million. Wakanda Forever doesn't need that kind of budget. Variety revealed Black Panther sequel carries a production budget of $250 million, making it the most expensive film to feature a black lead. Don't care. I don't care about who it features. I'm talking about the money that they spent on this movie. Doesn't look like $250 million either. But anyway, so then the widely accepted formula, this isn't my formula, this is the film industry's, right? Is they take the budget times 2 to include marketing. So now you need $500 million in your pocket to break even, right? We're on the same page. $250 million for production, $250 million for marketing. That's the industry standard for math. So people hear $500 million and they're like, oh, okay, well, so you need $500 million. Incorrect. Because remember, when box office numbers are reported, they are not reported what the studio got. They're reported what the theaters sold. And in most situations, the theater splits the tickets with the producer of the film 50-50, meaning, you know, the movie producer gets 50 cents on the dollar for everything. Now, in Disney's case, I believe I read a few years ago that Disney has a higher split than anybody else. And I think for the Avengers movies or Marvel movies, I've seen it as high as 60 cents on the dollar. Okay. So to make up that $500 million they've spent, they need about $850 million in box office. $850 million times 60 cents, essentially, okay, is $510 million. Same page, right? So they need like $820 million to break even by this math, okay? That's a huge problem. Huge. You need $850 million before you start making anything? That is a very poor investment. You could look at a movie like The Joker, which I think had an $80 million budget or a $20 million budget. I think it was 80, and it made $1 billion. Okay. So, you know, that's why you get sequels, right? So in almost every scenario so they're starting out way behind the 8 ball. They need $850 million to about break even. By the way, if you're watching this video and you haven't yet subscribed, please do click that red subscribe button down below. I know I'm covering a lot of Elon Musk stuff lately, but I obviously cover the film industry, I cover technology, I cover basically everything except hard politics. And so I would absolutely love if you subscribed. So they have, I know you might have to create an account, and that's kind of a pain, but trust me, it goes a long ways for me, and I greatly appreciate it. So 800 and whatever I said the math was, $850 million. It brings in $510 million, okay? Now let's also address a couple things. Marvel has, for a very long time, been blocked out of China. The first Black Panther film made about $100 million in China, so that's off the top. They're not getting that. Obviously, the film's not showing in Russia or Ukraine probably, so that's another $20, $30 million. I believe they cut out all the LGBTQ stuff so they could still show in the Middle East. But you're talking about $120, $130 million lost up front. Then let's talk about the media. The media narrative is hilarious. You know, it's really a lot of this other stuff too. Remember, like this woke stuff, like you had no real strong male lead in this film, except Newmore or whatever, but he wasn't even on the poster. He was upside down on the poster, whatever the case is. It's the MCU. All 3 of the major MCU films starred or co-starred a woman, and they all sucked so far this year. But also, there's kind of this woke narrative that was going around on the internet. Remember when all these TikToks were like, oh, white people shouldn't go see Black Panther. They should reserve their spot for black people, which is absurd because there's plenty of room in theaters. Here's something interesting. I tweeted out, they told white people to stay home from Black Panther 2, and it worked. Here's the original breakdown from Black Panther 1. 37% black, 35% Caucasian, 18% Hispanic, 5% Asian / other. The recent breakdown was 44% black, 21% Hispanic, so it went up a little bit, but not much, even though they had representation there. And Caucasian went from 35% down to 20, 15 basis points. That's actually massive. Now, there's a lot more, of course. Maybe white folks were more tied to Chadwick Boseman and tied to Black Panther in particular. I don't actually think that, those viral TikToks necessarily had that big of an effect, but I do think that it was a non-zero thing, right? I think that She-Hulk, which was a disaster, scared people off. And then you see a lot of people, shout out to Hontus. They're always in my replies. They're very kind about disagreeing. I don't like to dunk on them, so please don't. But, this is just incorrect. They wrote, name a sequel that did as well or better than the first movie. It's a very rare thing. That's just dead wrong. It's like literally every Marvel movie. I wrote Captain America, Winter Soldier, Shrek 2, The Dark Knight, Toy Story 2, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Almost every Avengers movie made more money than the previous. So, no, it's absolutely not uncommon, especially in Marvel, for sequels to make more money than the originals. So you end up with some real questions here. Yes, Black Panther will make a lot of money. I mean, it will gross a lot of money. You see, the original Black Panther dominated during its theatrical run, ending with $700 million in North America and $1.4 billion worldwide. But we also know that Black Panther Wakanda Forever is underperforming in international markets. There may be, a reason for that. It's tough to know for sure. I mean, obviously, losing China is relevant. I actually don't think that Black Panther 2 was a terrible movie. I just think that it wasn't very good. And I think it was an average Marvel movie, which is what Marvel puts out. But I think ultimately there is Marvel fatigue, and the media is doing everything it can to spin this. But when you actually break down the real numbers, $750 to $850 million to break even, I mean, they'll talk about it making $1 billion, but I think there's a lot there are a lot better investments than spending $850 million to make $100. That's a really low return on investment. I mean, it's still $100 million, but Chadwick is gone. That's a big draw. The rest of the crew, not really, as important. I think you say strongest Latino in Marvel got beaten by a 60-pound skinny girl, then got his people colonized. I mean, there's also some questions about how they view Hispanic people or Latino people in this film. There were articles talking about it being, quote, too woke. I think that also the existence of Disney Plus probably mutes people from going to the theater. I mean, remember that, the very same people who love those lockdowns, there will be people that will never, ever want to go back to the movie theater because they're too afraid to. Will Black Panther make a lot of money, gross a lot of money? Yeah. But whether or not it's actually going to be a financial success remains to be seen. And with flops like The Eternals, I think Thor: Love and Thunder disappointed at the box office. I know Doctor Strange did well at the box office, but it wasn't an awesome movie. It wasn't even as good as the first one. So, I felt played out. I felt kind of bored with Wanda since we had WandaVision and all this kind of stuff. So I think Marvel has a real big problem at their hands right now. I'll be interested to hear what you say in the comment section down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.